Okay. Welcome. So,
Hi.
hi. I'm so excited to have Karin Kirkpatrick as my first guest. I'm new on Substack and I'm starting an interview series where I interview a bunch of people through the province, focusing on leadership, but of course, my journey into politics and as I learn about different issues and really have the opportunity to talk with people at the forefront of the issues that I'm most passionate about. So, Corinne and I have decided to do a weekly series. It's called Coffee with Corinne. We're probably going to do them as lives Thursday mornings. And yeah, we're going to talk about a variety of things, the issues, events that, pop up, especially as the government goes back to Parliament in October. And yeah, and then lots of talks about leadership. I see Corinne as a mentor. We've only met a few months ago and actually never met face to face in person, but she's already become a mentor to me. So I'm excited. So hello, Corinne.
Hi, thank you. And thank you for all the nice things you've said. And I'm so excited to work with you because I love your energy.
Oh, cool. Thank you. Yeah, so this chat is just going to be an introduction so that people, as they tune into the future coffees with Corinne, that they
I
kind of
have my
know,
coffee.
okay,
I
I
have
have
my
mine too.
coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that they know a little bit about your background, beyond the bio, because your bio is like highly impressive.
Boring, but
It's
yeah.
not, it's not, I'm going to even torture you by reading it here.
Please don't.
Just to give people a quick background, and then we can go into it more and how you feel it actually has played a part in your journey to becoming the leader of Centre BC and how you think it prepares you as a leader. Okay, so I'll
Okay.
read it quickly. So this is from our website, centrebc.ca. So Corinne Kirkpatrick is the leader of Centre BC. She served as MLA for West Vancouver Capilano from 2020 to 2024. During her time in office, Kirkpatrick served as the shadow minister for various portfolios, including housing, childcare, gender equity and inclusion, and the Ministry of Children and Families. So that is one area that we will definitely be talking a lot about because it's one of my passions. Outside of politics, Kirkpatrick is widely recognized as one of BC's most accomplished nonprofit leaders, having worked as assistant dean at UBC's Sauder School of Business, CEO of the Real Estate Foundation of BC, and CEO of Family Services of Greater Vancouver. She has served as a board member of the Greater Vancouver Board of Trade, the Van City Community Foundation, and the Judicial Council of British Columbia. Corinne is a fellow of the Chartered Professional Accountants and holds both a Master's of Law degree and a Master of Business Administration. She is a recipient of the Queen's Diamond Jubilee Medal and the King Charles III Coronation Medal. Wow, that sounds fancy. That's what I mean. Like first time I
People
read
are going to
bio,
fall asleep before you finish reading that.
no, whenever I remember the first time I looked at your LinkedIn profile and I'm like, this looks like multiple people. I also have a very eclectic
Yes.
background, so I know the value that that brings, but it definitely, I thought you were going to be like 80 years old.
Well, that's what I think. People read that and they think, is that an old photo or what? She must be really old. No, I really have kind of bounced a lot because when I see things that I'm interested in or that I'm passionate in, my friends say I have bright, shiny thing syndrome. And so I see something and I kind of run towards it because it's exciting. And so I have moved between different things in different sectors, but I think that as we were talking about this, you and I before, is that breadth of experiences. It just gives you a different way of looking at different things, and I think that's really valuable.
Yeah, and one thing that stood out to me was both your experience, your education and experience in business, finance, accounting, as well as having a law degree, and your work in the nonprofit area. And so that really aligned to me. It was like when I read what Centre BC is all about, balancing fiscal responsibility, economic prosperity with social responsibility. I'm like, well, the leader is just walking the talk, right? Like that really seems like what your background is. Can you speak a bit towards that? How that might have
Sure.
informed the,
Yeah, one of the things I want to just make clear too, as we're talking about this, is I worry that this is a party that is closely identified with me as opposed to being identified really for the values and principles and the other people that are involved in it. So as we grow the party and we've got people expressing interest in being members and being candidates, that I just want to make sure that we're celebrating that this isn't just me. There's a whole bunch of people behind this that are part of Centre BC, which makes it exciting. So talking about that, and now I've lost the thread of the question. It was what my background and experience, how
yeah,
that's kind of got us here.
yeah,
Okay. I won't rehash history just to mention that, and it's a year tomorrow. I was elected originally as a BC Liberal. I have always been less about party affiliations than really about what are the principles and values that we want to govern on. It was the closest match for me. You're never 100% with any party. You've got to find those that do support the things that are important to you. So I was really surprised when last year, after a whole bunch of people had put lots and lots of time, volunteers, candidates, MLAs, into mounting, an election and wanting to form government, is that the leader of the party pulled all of the candidates out and threw their support behind another party. So it really decimated, which was as close to the center as BC has had for a very long time. It's center-right party, but there were a lot of good social programs and ideas and supports for vulnerable communities that have come out of that party. So that was reduced to rubble. And in the last election, we had two fairly divisive and polarized options, which are the NDP on one side and the BC Conservatives on the other side. And the BC Conservatives are not affiliated with the federal Conservatives. I think it's important that we know that. So not just me, but a whole bunch of people got together and said, look, we've got to do something about this. Can we try and bring back, the BC Liberals as a true center party? Well, we tried. We couldn't do that because for whatever reasons are going on there. So the group of us said, you know what, let's listen to what people are asking us to do. And we registered the party about 16 weeks ago. And it's hard to build something from scratch, but we're lucky that people, know of many of us in the communities. The media has been very supportive. They love the underdog. And so right now that's working for us. It may change the more successful we become. I'm excited, but I really truly believe we're doing the right things to give British Columbians an option for pragmatic decision making, financial responsibility, well-managed budgets, but at the same time, not taking advantage of our most vulnerable, supporting them, supporting people with good, strong social programs and healthcare programs, and not this dog whistle politics and this gender politics. Like, let's look at the things that are important, which are housing, affordability, education for your children. Those things are all really important.
yeah. And thank you for clarifying or, like differentiating like Centre BC from Corinne Kirkpatrick as one package. It is definitely like, so when just a little bit of my background, how I got into politics is, last election, this fall election was, I started really getting interested in the politics part of it. I would consider myself, I never thought of myself as a political person, but the things I'm passionate about, education, the health and welfare of our children and youth, I'm highly concerned about them and I have been for a long time, but now I really am. I also have a background in the film industry. And so I realized that all the changes that I felt needed to be made were going to happen at the level of provincial politics. And so, but I didn't align with any of the parties. And I say, for the first time in my life, I voted conservative. My family's from Alberta, friends and family, strong conservatives. And I even texted them, you're not going to believe it, but hell has frozen over. I have voted conservative because of the way the NDP were handling the finances. So this comes me to the leadership and why when I discovered Centre BC, yes, I was like, wow, this is me. Checked out the website. I'm like, yeah, this is me. Like I just like I didn't even know Centre was possible anymore. But I did do a lot of research on you because I think the leader of a political party, and it's not going to be you forever, but as the first leader, I think for me, it was vital. It was vital because I was actually a fan of John Horgan. And
Mhm.
then, like he left the David Eby with a surplus. And I don't understand how that could just be spent and then go into a deficit. I don't even now, but for sure at the time, I didn't understand everything about like how that's possible, but it just didn't sound good, right? Like the same government party, how does that happen? And so, and I voted conservative, trying to get NDP out. And then almost immediately, but 4 months later, like travesty in my world, because our MLA in Lake Country, Coldstream, Kelowna, stepped down in support of another MLA who, in my mind, is racist. And even this MLA has racist rhetoric for sure. And so to me, the fact that that happened is about leadership. And so I needed to know that the leader of this party wasn't going to let things like that happen, especially with a new party that could grow really fast. And so when I met with you, and I had done a lot of research and watched everything online because you're not just like the front woman of a band to me. It's like you're the voice of the board and the voice of all the members. And now that I'm going out and meeting people, and this is going to be my next question, is like I'm just finding so many people are like, I'm done with the divisiveness,
Mhm.
but we need leadership. Like we need leadership. And so, yeah, like what are you hearing on the ground? I know you've been out all summer meeting people and going to events.
Yeah, it is. There's still confusion about what center means. And so the more people that, you and I and some other folks are talking to try and help educate about that, it does seem to really resonate with people. I've received like just outreach from people. LinkedIn, I have to say I love LinkedIn, and Twitter and, direct messaging me saying, hey, I heard about this on the news or I read about this and I'm really interested in learning more. They're tired of the nastiness. They're tired of how politics has become mean. Really, since 2016, it started before that, but so much of it, I mean, I can place at the foot, I guess, of social media and the ability for anonymity and no consequences for calling people horrible names. And I was during the last election, I was threatened, numerous times by people saying I was splitting the right. But again, it's just a misunderstanding of where we are in the spectrum. And when I'm talking to people, you can just see them say, "Oh gosh, that really resonates with the fact that they feel homeless right now." And a lot of people like you held their nose and voted for a party they wouldn't have, on both sides. A lot of people voted NDP that are saying, "Oh my God, I never voted NDP before, but I didn't know where to put my vote." Other than some of the communities that had a center candidate where there was an opportunity for them there. But yeah, so I'm hearing good, positive things. People are excited. But you and I and everybody else, we need to be excited when we're talking to people about it. And we need to keep our focus on the future and not talk about the toxicity of the past or the divisiveness or what happened to the previous party. We just need to keep our eye on the ball and move forward and be excited. And I want to help, as the leader, help to build this party to a place where it's exciting for people, it resonates, It is there's good infrastructure and we've got membership and people donating so that at some point other people will say, hey, that's a party I'd like to lead. And have good people who want to step up in some kind of leadership race at some point. I mean, I wasn't, I've said this before, I wasn't, democratically elected. I was the person in the right place at the right time to get this party started, and am absolutely committed to it being successful. And then we'll decide what the future is.
And so, specifically looking at your background, the eclectic background that you have, how do you think that that has prepared you for this leadership role for this party?
Well, I think the combination of having run businesses, being involved in business organizations, having an accounting designation, really having to manage the finances not only of my own business, but I've gone into nonprofit organizations, where there's 500 staff and a $30 million budget, and the ability to understand you can't spend more than you're bringing in. And you also have to manage in a way that engages your staff and gets them excited about what you're doing. And I think that's the same way we have to be in government. We have to provide a vision for people, something that's exciting and will help them believe and feel safe and hope in the province of British Columbia, but doing it in a very mindful way. When I went into nonprofit organizations, I looked at this as a business. We have to operate like a business because that's the only way we can be successful and move forward and help people.
Yeah.
We can't run the programs that we need to run in nonprofit if we don't have the money to run them. And I also think, being involved in organizations that were investing in sustainable land use projects when I was at the Real Estate Foundation, it was phenomenal. I got to travel to communities that house it, and the Haida Gwaii, working with them on restoring, the Haida trails. And so I've been exposed to a lot of different things. And so understanding the value of so many things in different communities rather than just having this real urban focus, which I worry when you've got people in Victoria who are making decisions, not considering maybe the impact in Fort St. John or in a First Nation somewhere. And I hope I'm not rambling too much, but
Oh,
that is kind of, bringing that financial acumen or, commitment to managing well, but marrying that to the fact that we have to we'll steward that money well, but we have a responsibility to all British Columbians, not just the ones that vote for us,
mhm.
but to all British Columbians. And sometimes that means making difficult decisions. I think that's something the NDP hasn't been good at. You don't make your spending decisions based on the global news headline, at 6 o'clock, and you don't do it based on polling. You do it based on research,
Mhm.
and you're efficient with it. And when I first was in public office, I would ask a question, and the minister in response would say, "Well, we've spent more money than any other government on mental health, or we've spent more on daycare." I kept hearing that one. And, I say, well, if I, running a nonprofit organization, if I went to my board at the end of the year
Mhm.
and I said, we didn't do the things we said we were going to do, but I spent more money than any other CEO has ever spent, that's a firing offense. I mean, you've
Right.
got to be able to demonstrate that you're doing the things you've committed to, and that means spending the money in the right places. If you're spending the money in the right places, first you have to know what the right places
That's what I
are, and
was going
that's
to ask. How do
data,
you
yeah,
know?
data tracking, data management, following up on, outcomes, making sure that you understand where that investment is working, and you don't just keep piling money into stuff which may not be effective, and maybe we need it in someplace else. So you can be fiscally responsible without austerity. You need to have a heart, not just a heart, because as I say, we've got to make difficult decisions. We have to see where's the need the greatest and how can we best use the money that we have, taxpayer dollars, in the right places to make British Columbia a better place for people.
Yeah, the other thing that I Thank you for that. That's really helpful. The other thing that I really loved about what Centre BC is not only planning on doing, but we're actually doing it now, is being in consultation with stakeholders. And so, like how does that fit into your vision for not just now but the vision of the party and engaging people like you and I have been on calls with the people involved with the BC Rural Health Network, and they're just like Victoria's forgotten the like the rural BC, which is like it's our people, and it's, there's
Yeah,
a lot of population, even if you're just looking at numbers, but they're just forgotten. And I guess
yes,
like for a party that is driven by the ideology of we're the compassionate party and we're the caring party, and there's people, you know, just like serious issues around healthcare, like not only with emergency room closures, but just in the day to day of not being able to have a healthy lifestyle because you might, you're over 60 and you might hurt yourself and it's time
exactly.
out to
Yeah.
hospital.
You
Like,
don't have access to primary care. You don't have access to an emergency helicopter to take you to a hospital. It's going to take that helicopter 2 hours just to get there. People are losing their lives because of
yes,
that. And I don't, and antiquated equipment in health centers that they have, and a lack of diagnostic equipment. And I think those of us in the Lower Mainland, like if I need a blood test, I drive down the street to, whatever it's called, Life Labs.
five choices. If you're
Yeah,
downtown, there's like five
yeah,
choices.
I can
Life
go to a
gets
few of them
done.
here.
Yeah,
But if I'm living in a small community, Caslow, other places where I can't just do that. And and there are, I mean, I don't know what Caslow's resources are, but some of the other ones that we were talking to the other day don't have those resources. And it costs money as well. Like if you're going to go somewhere to get health supports, you're then paying for a hotel or you're driving and you're doing that. So the example, that was one
yeah,
example of stakeholder
yeah,
conversations, because I thought I knew what the issues were in rural and remote healthcare until I had a conversation with those folks who live it. I was right on some of my assumptions, but I was wrong on the impact of those assumptions or why those things were happening or why. So you have to have these conversations. And I saw that with this NDP government bringing in legislation based on what somebody's talking about in the news or what the polls are saying on a certain thing and bringing it in very quickly. So often it needs to go back and be fixed, and not taking into account the stakeholders or talking to the wrong stakeholders. With First Nations groups, you can't talk to one group and say we've done consultation
yeah,
and where there's 50. It's a super complicated
yeah.
when you are working in Indigenous communities, getting proper consultation. And you've got to not just pay lip service and said, yeah, we spoke to these guys or we spoke without really understanding. I mean, that's a whole bigger topic. But was very upset with it, with government when they made a unilateral decision to cut funding for families of young people with autism. And so and I had the Ministry of Children and Families file at the time, and that's where that autism funding fell under. I heard from parents all across BC, from Autism BC, from all the different associations, and parents coming in and just talking about what has this done to my life?
Mhm.
What has this done to my child? Like those personal stories.
Yeah,
And government said, oh, we did consultation and we did. And there, as far as I could see in that sector and with those parents, no consultation had been done. Or consultation, we should define what consultation
right.
is as
Yeah.
well. Consultation is not going out and asking the questions that you already know the answers to, and
Mhm.
then coming back and saying, we did consultation, but they already knew what the outcome was going to be. Or they went out and told people what was happening and didn't, or they asked for feedback and it goes away and you never see it again. Going out and talking to people in the north, in the urban areas, on the island, which are specific real estate, housing, let's be talking to everybody so we can bring back that information and make decisions that are based on data, but also decisions that are true to where we stand in terms of that pragmatic data-driven decisions, but also the best interest of communities. Making sure that we are mindful of issues like climate change and mindful of issues of equity. And so those kinds of things are important. So you've got that framework of what do we stand for? And then you've got how do we get the data on the policies and then hang those policies on that framework. So voters will understand, if there isn't an issue on the table right now, they'll have a good idea of where we're going to go on that issue in future when it comes up, because we have to stay with the values and commitment that we have to work in the best interest of the largest group of British Columbians.
hmm And this is one of the things that is so exciting for me coming in at the ground level of a party, but also for everybody should be excited right now, I think, because we're not in Parliament right now. But we're working full time, many of us involved. Like you said, we have an incredible team and there's members and there are people, involved that we really are using this time not only to build the party and the prominence of the party, but actually developing the policies. Like we're not coming to the table with ideology and then creating policy from ideology. Like we're using this time to meet with people. And I don't know, people are just being so grateful. Like the group that we met with last week from New Denver, they're like, government listens, but they don't hear us. So it's
Yeah,
that thing like, no, I'm listening, but you can tell that they just walk away and don't implement one idea or
yep,
don't continue the consultation. And so I invite anybody like to reach out if they're a part of an organization or, a company passionate about something that the government's just not doing right. Like now's the time
yeah.
to talk.
We'd love to come and learn. And just on the policy point too, is that even with that information that we're getting from these groups and our principals, and still ultimately these are conversations we have with our members. And so
Right.
there are opportunities for members of the party to put policy ideas together, to make recommendations on things. And then when we have AGMs and conventions, then there's an opportunity to have those debates and conversations with people to make sure that we're aligned, and often for people to make sure that they're in the right party. I want people in this party that feel comfortable, and they're not going to agree with everything we do all the time. And I'm not going to agree 100% with the
Yeah.
policies we put forward in future too, because it's give and take. But as long as they're center based and made in the best interest of the broadest number of people, we go with that. But we don't. I'm not making policy. The executive's not making policy. There's a whole lot of work that goes into that, and we're not making it based on headlines, polls, public pressure. We're making it in a much more responsible way,
Yeah.
listening to the data.
Yeah.
And the data means what are people saying and how is it impacting them? And yeah,
Yeah, and that's a good point. Like we're not like Center BC is not a niche part of the population. It's actually like we have former NDP MLAs, we have, federal conservatives. So I tell people it's from like center left to center right and everything in between. So yeah, with that, there's going to be some times where you're not in 100% alignment, but it's so much like I just know this is the where the majority of us live, and in that there's mutual respect. And I think that that is so much what is missing out there right now, and why people are like, you can't talk about, well, they've always said don't talk about politics, and now I finally understand why. But now within families you're not supposed to talk about politics, and I think it's because there's been a lack of empathy and a lack of respect for even being able to see the other person's perspective. And then when you understand that, then you're more open to compromise. It's like any
hmm
relationship.
yeah. I
Yeah.
was I was speaking to a BC Conservative candidate yesterday, and he said something. I'm not going to remember exactly how he said it, but he said in his party, And there are a lot of people that were in that party that were a little surprised about some of the stuff going around in that party. He said one thing that happened, even though he was very uncomfortable with a lot of the conversation, he learned to listen
Mm,
and to approach things not as a fight, but as an opportunity to share information. And I think we go into politics today as more like a fight. You
yeah.
bring something up, you bring Soji up, and everybody's yelling, and
Mm,
but where that should be is that should be a conversation.
yeah.
It shouldn't be people yelling at each other. It shouldn't be. So there's all these topics and that's at the dinner table with your family. If you disagree on your politics, isn't that a great place to have a conversation about it?
Yeah.
Because I often find, somebody will say, I'm going to vote green because I hate, and I'll say, oh,
Yeah.
okay, why are you, what? They don't know.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't like this policy. Why don't you like this policy? I'm not really
Yeah.
sure. You know what I mean, right? Like, and
Encouraging
I'm the
critical
same.
thinking for
Yeah,
sure.
it's like, well, I just think I don't like that, but who have you taken the time? Because people have a short attention span now, and they're
Yeah.
on Twitter and they're looking at headlines, and I'll tell you, journalism is very different now than it was when I sound like a really old person when I was a kid, is that the journalist now, the person in the media, they themselves become kind of like a celebrity or a name. It used to be you reported on the facts and you
Yeah.
weren't leading people. You did not lead people to a conclusion. You reported on the facts. Well, today, when you hear, not all media, but a lot of them, and on radio and whatever, is that the questions are based in a way that they lead the listener to believe a certain thing that
Yeah.
might be the view of that station or the whatever. And please don't get me wrong, I am not dumping on
Yeah.
mainstream media. We need them because they're the ones that actually have the ethical obligation to find details and facts and can be held accountable when they don't. But the way that the questions with everybody are raised, it tells you what you're supposed to think, as opposed to saying, here are a set of facts and you need to decide what you think. But because we are so busy, and who reads more than the first paragraph of an email and then they say, well, I'll
Yeah.
get back to it, or we just don't take in the data anymore and we're letting other people make decisions for us. And I don't know how to change that. Maybe it's just the way of the world moving forward, but
Well,
it is.
yeah, I think that's an opportunity though, right? Like there's
Mhm.
an opportunity there. Media are people as well, and maybe we'll do a whole talk on
Media are people
this.
as well. I'm sure they'll appreciate
Yeah,
that.
no, but I mean, we think of media as like an entity, and I'm
You're right.
saying they're individuals as well who have fears and passions and and it's become, they need to work with the algorithm as well,
Yep.
especially if they've moved into podcast land or, on social media. And
Yeah.
so, but that's something I think that there's also with the polarization of the parties it almost like it would be hard for an individual media person to report on something and be you have to be hyper aware, and that's actually one of the characteristics I think of is leadership is you have to be hyper aware of your own tendencies, of your own
Yes.
biases, and
Mhm.
that can't be taught in university. It's something that has to develop, there has to be like a willingness to explore that. But yeah, so we see, I knew this was going to happen. We're just going to chat for so long, but we have lots to talk about, and we'll do that in our future coffee talks. So, but is there any last thing you would like to say in general about Centre BC or where we're at right now at, approaching the end of August here?
Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. You are an example too, and I will say this broadly, is that we are attracting people who have never been attracted to politics before.
Yeah.
And for me, that's one of the most exciting things is to have people who say, oh, finally, there's something that I'm interested in. I think you're a prime example of that. And other people as well, that especially being reached out on LinkedIn and other things, is that they've never done this before, but they want to have a conversation. But I'm hoping that British Columbians this will resonate with them. We're happy to have conversations if they have questions, if they want to just learn a little bit more. Uh, Email us, find out or go to our website. It's centrebc.ca. Center is spelled the Canadian way, CENTRE. And learn more about us and reach out. We need to build membership, and we need to build donations, and we need to be able to, be able to afford to run a real election. And that election is probably not going to be in 2028. It could be as early as 2026,
Right.
which is a whole other conversation for the
Yes.
next conversation.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Corinne, and I look forward to our next chat.
Thank you. I appreciate it.